Have you ever heard it said that eating celery will make you lose weight? That's actually true. You ever heard this? Because the really stringy stuff in celery, your body can't break down the really stringy stuff in celery. And so your body gets very little energy from eating celery. So little, in fact, that... Wait, I'll just finish my celery. You get so little energy from eating the celery that the energy it takes to eat the celery, like the energy it takes to actually chew the celery and to try and digest the celery, is more than the energy you get from eating the celery. So you are literally burning calories when you eat celery. It takes more energy to try and eat the celery than you get from the celery. So it is literally true to say, if you eat celery, you actually lose weight. Now, you don't lose very much weight, right? This is not diet advice. You don't lose very much weight, but you actually are losing weight when you're eating celery, which seems impossible, doesn't it? It seems impossible that you could eat anything and lose weight. How is that, that you can put this into your body and actually lose weight? That's what we call a paradox. You ever heard that word? A paradox. A paradox is something that seems untrue or impossible, but is actually true. There are lots of paradoxes in the world around us. Eating celery is one. Another paradox is that the more choices you have, the harder it is to make a choice. That seems impossible because you would think the more choices you have, the more options you have, the easier it would be to make a choice. But that's actually not the way the world works. There's a famous study that social scientists have done. It's been repeated many times with jam. And if you go into a supermarket and you set up a little tasting table, they'll put out 3 different flavours of jam. And then they track the sales. People will come up, they'll try the jam, and they'll go, yeah, I like this one or I like that one. If you do the same experiment, same table, same sort of branding of jam, and they put out 20 flavours of jam, you actually sell less jam than if you put out 3 flavours of jam. There's too many choices for people. And even if when you've got 3 flavours, if those same 3 flavours are represented amongst the 20, you sell less jam. It's a paradox. It would seem that actually less choice is more helpful for people in some circumstances than more choice. We have more ways to communicate in our world now than we did, say, 40 or 50 years ago. There are whole channels of communication with smartphones and such that exist now that didn't exist. Yet, if you ask people, and this has been repeated many times, people will say they are more lonely now than they once were. Isn't that crazy? And again, it's a paradox. How can that be? If we've got more ways to communicate more easily with more people, and yet at the same time, we're more lonely. Exercise makes you lose weight. Except if you focus on high weight-bearing exercise. Did you know that? If your exercise is focused around things like bench press and squats and things like that, the amount of muscle, the weight of muscle that you build up doing that is more than the fat loss or the weight that you lose in doing the exercise. So believe it or not, it is possible to exercise and to gain weight. Again, that's a paradox. That seems impossible. Surely any kind of exercise would make you lose weight. It is possible to exercise and gain weight. A paradox is something that seems untrue or impossible, but is actually true. Jesus spoke in paradox lots. Jesus spent a lot of his time teaching people about God. A lot of his public teaching, a lot of his public talking was to teach people about God, explaining who God is, talking about the way God planned the world to be. And one of his main messages in his teaching was that the way God's world works is very different from the way the world around us works. That God's sort of image or God's vision for the way he created the world to be and the way the world actually is are very different. In fact, Jesus would say that many of the things that you think are true in the world, the exact opposite is true in God's world. And many of the things that are untrue in the world turn out to be true or right in God's world. Jesus explained it one day like this. This is from Mark chapter 9, verse 23. Jesus said, "Whoever wants to be my disciple," in other words, whoever wants to be in the group that's going to follow me, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. Listen to this. He says, "For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me will save it. Whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will save it." This is a classic paradox. Something that seems impossible or untrue, but is actually true. Losing your life is the exact opposite of saving your life, right? If you want to save your life, you should do everything you can to not lose your life. It's a paradox. But of course, Jesus isn't talking just about saving your life in a literal sense, as in, stop breathing, save your life. He's talking about the way we live our life, the things that we focus our life on, the goals, if you like, that we have in life. He's saying that people whose life goals are all about themselves, people who are doing everything they can to save themselves, are actually on a path to losing their life. And the people who give their lives away for God and for others are actually on a path to saving their lives. This is one of the paradoxes that Jesus teaches. Now, of course, we live in a world that says you focus on you and you follow your goals. Look after yourself, be kind to yourself, live your best life, chase your dreams, you do you. If you want to achieve your goals in life, you need to put you and to put the goals that you have in life at the front of your life, right? When we hear this talked about 100 different ways that you set your goals and then you do whatever you can to achieve those goals. That's what life's all about. And that makes sense. That makes really good sense. It makes sense however you sort of cut and slice that makes sense. And I confess that I get sucked into, that I kind of buy into that in my own life a lot too. But Jesus says that if you want to be my disciples, if you want to follow me, there's another set of life goals. And there's another path to achieving those life goals. It's like Jesus is saying, everyone is going this way, focusing on themselves, getting more, doing more, being more. He says, but that's not the direction to achieve God's goals that he has for your life. In fact, that path doesn't lead to life at all. Another time Jesus explained it like this, Matthew 7:33. He said, "Wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow is the road that leads to life, and only a few find it." It's a paradox. He's saying there's an obvious way, a way that seems right, the way that everyone's going, but it's not the path that leads to life at all. He said, in fact, quite the opposite. That's the path, he says, that leads to destruction. That's the path that leads to destruction. And over here, he says, is a small, narrow path that everyone looks at and said, that path isn't going anywhere, surely. That's a path to nowhere. Only a few find that path, and Jesus says, but paradoxically, that's the path that leads to life. Jesus wants his followers, he's using this language, he wants his followers to see and to understand that life is a decision. It's a one way or the other way kind of decision. It's an either or decision. You can't do both. You can't walk this way and this way at the same time. You've got to choose. And I say that because I get the sense sometimes, often in fact I get the sense when I talk to people, and people who believe in God, that there are some people who think that I can live the same way that everyone else does. I can live life, I can be the same as everyone else, and then I can just add a little bit of God on top of that. The God's like a secret sauce in a hamburger joint. You know, you can have the same hamburger as everyone else, but if you get the secret sauce, it just makes the hamburger that little bit better. But fundamentally, it's the same burger. I can live my life just the same as everyone else. But if I just add a little bit of God into it, it'll just make it that little bit better. The message of Jesus, the message of paradox that Jesus teaches, is that life doesn't work that way. I know it might seem like it does, and it might work that way for a little while, but in the end, whoever wants to save their life will lose it. That broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. Jesus is incredibly clear that you and I have a choice to make. You can follow the life goals that everyone else is following, and we all know how that goes. You study hard and you get a good job and you find a nice partner and you have cute little kids and you get a solid job and you earn a pile of money, and then you spend that pile of money on you and your cute little kids doing the things that you want to do, and you get old and you retire and you travel the world and you die happy, right? That's the way the story goes. That's what the path to success looks like. It's a well-trodden path that many, many people walk. And Jesus says you can follow that path in life. It's a wide road and everyone's going that way, but that path doesn't lead to life. I know it looks like it does. Everyone else will tell you it does, he said, but that's not the path that leads to ultimate, fulfilling, everlasting life. And he says you have a choice to make. You can choose that path. You can choose to walk that way. Or you can live in paradox. You can live life following God's plan and God's path for your life. And God's goals won't look like the path to success. In fact, it's actually a path that looks to everyone else like a path to failure. These goals won't look like they're a path to winning in life. In fact, you'll have to make choices that look like you're deliberately trying to lose in life. Honestly. That's the paradox. That's the life that Jesus is inviting us to. When a person says yes to Jesus, when a person says this is the kind of the kind of life I want to live, they're not just choosing to believe in something. They're making a choice to live differently. This is what Jesus is trying to convey to people. He's saying, if you want to follow me, I just want to be clear about what you're in for. Right? I'm not just inviting you to believe in something. I'm not inviting you to think something. I'm trying to explain that if you want to follow me, it's going to be a different direction. Your life's going to have to make some different choices and go in a different direction than you've been going and that probably everyone else around you is going. You're making a choice to live differently. You're making a choice to set up your life around different kinds of goals. You're making a choice to walk a different path in life. And the path to winning with God looks a lot like the path to losing in everyone else's eyes. The path to victory with God looks a lot like the path to defeat in everyone else's eyes. It's a paradox. Something that seems to be impossible or that seems to be untrue, but it's actually true. And that's the life that Jesus is inviting us to. So the next few weeks, we're going to unpack more of this paradoxical life. There's a good statement, this paradoxical life that Jesus is calling us to, because there are a number of other statements that Jesus will make to unpack other paradoxes, other paradoxical statements that he will make to unpack this. But I want to begin this little series that we're going to do now and that will take us up to Easter. I want to begin making sure that we understand that this series is based around a fundamental choice. And I don't want us to miss the choice that Jesus is offering, because he's not offering something for you to believe in. He's not offering a little extra to put on your life. He's not offering a secret sauce kind of Christianity. Jesus is inviting you to live God's way, to follow God's goals and path for your life. And he's being as upfront as he can that these goals, that this path will look like defeat. It will look like you're headed in completely the wrong direction. It will look like I am going to lose everything going this way. The life God is inviting you to is actually, paradoxically, a life of victory. He's actually inviting you onto a narrow path that will ultimately save your life. He's inviting you into a life that is real and full and awesome and abundant and eternal. It's just that it's not going to look like that when you stare down the path. And he just wants to be clear, if you want to follow me, this is the choice. Come, it's going to be incredible, he says, but you better be ready to make some pretty crazy looking decisions in life. You better be ready to make some choices that look impossible. You better be ready to set some goals that won't look like goals at all. They won't look like anything that anyone should want to aspire to. But the good news of Jesus is this is the path to life. He's as clear as he can. I'm not trying to trick anyone. He's coming out saying, this is the path to life. It will look like a path to losing your life, but it is the path to ultimate life and freedom and healing and wonder and hope. And Jesus is asking, are you ready for the life of paradox? Let me pray. Father, I thank you for Jesus. I thank you for the invitation that he makes to us, because he makes that invitation regardless of who we are. He makes that invitation to poor people and rich people, to smart people and not so smart people, to people with a lot of money and people with no money. He says, everyone is welcome. I'm not inviting you based on anything you've done. I've made the way. I've opened the door. I'm setting out the path. Do you want to follow me? Lord, I pray for those of us, and I'm one of them. There's so many things in the world around us that want to pull us down the wide road, that want to pull us in the direction that everyone else is going. The pictures, the stories, the sounds, the smells, the taste of what that life could look like is so attractive, you know? I want to live like everyone else. It just looks great. It looks like success. It looks like the way to save your life. But Jesus says ultimately that just leads to destruction and death. Well, Lord, I'm praying for myself, and I'm inviting anyone else to pray with me this morning. Lord, give me the courage to walk the narrow road. Giving me the courage to make the choice that when I look at it, I think this can't possibly be a good idea. This looks like it's headed toward loss and defeat. But Jesus says, come with me. This is the path to life and freedom and hope and eternity. Lord, give me the courage to walk that path. And for those who inside their hearts are nodding along with me saying, I want the courage to walk that path too, Lord, bless us as we make that journey, as we continue on that journey, as maybe for some of us, maybe for the first time, really commit to that journey this morning. It's not an easy road, but it's the road to life. May we walk it together with joy and humility, I pray in the awesome name of Jesus. Amen.